You almost had it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a deep dive. It is the first deep dive that we are doing on the Mind Over Madness channel, but I'm alone because I could not wait to talk about this film. So, shall we dive in? So for those of you who are not aware, Netflix have rebooted the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They tried to do a sequel, basically, from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, from what I am able to gather. And the film, overall, up until a certain point, was probably the best reboot sequel of a horror franchise that I have ever seen. So, why isn't it perfect? What about the film has made it not perfect? Well, it's the ending. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's the fucking ending. So I'll let you guys know when we're about to hit spoiler territory. But for now, we're not hitting that just yet. But we are going to discuss a few little things. So let's dive in. So as we know, horror franchises are constantly trying to be rebooted. We know this because Friday the 13th tried it, Nightmare on Elm Street tried it, and all of those films, every time, Halloween has even done it. And all of those films, to me at least, lack something. In Friday the 13th, it wasn't always the acting that was the problem. It was how they set up the killer, Jason Voorhees. In my opinion, it just wasn't that good. And a lot of the kills were covered up. You didn't really see anything. And I don't know. Something about that script just did not fit Friday the 13th. Then you had Nightmare on Elm Street, where they rebooted it with Jackie playing Freddy Krueger. And guys, you made him an actual paedophile. Like, that's not how it works with Freddy Krueger. My God. And the script was terrible. The acting in the remake for Nightmare on Elm Street, or the reboot, it wasn't terrible. The Freddy was good, but the script was horrible. Then you look at the Halloween films, right? They rebooted Halloween again as like a sequel reboot again, and it wasn't terrible. I think it was 2017 they did the first one, and then you had Halloween Kills, which I still haven't seen yet, mainly because I'm just tired of being disappointed by horror reboots. I'm a massive horror fan. I love all of the originals to these films. I love all the Halloweens. I even love all of the Friday the 13th, even Jason X. It's a dreadful film, but for whatever reason, I have a slight charm to it. And don't even get me started on A Nightmare on Elm Street. Those films are my favourite horror films of all time, the first three anyway. After that, they get a little bit silly, but I could still enjoy them for what they were. That brings us to this franchise. And Netflix, you almost had it. You almost did it. What do I mean by they almost did it? Well, the first hour and 3 minutes of the film are nearly perfect. I'll be honest, the acting is pretty good. The script is not terrible. They did a good job with the lore. Of course, obviously, there are certain actors that aren't in the film because unfortunately they've passed away. So there are certain main characters that they wanted to bring from the first original back into this franchise that they had to recast, and that's a hard job to do, especially when you're trying to hit maybe some nostalgia for some people when it comes to these films. But the first hour and 3 minutes of this film, I am not kidding when I say I almost thought that this was going to be the first time I watched a horror film reboot, and it was fucking perfect. Like, honest to God, they almost had it. And then, for whatever reason, I cannot for the life of me understand why this happened. They just made it stupid again. Like, this is a habit, right? And I don't know if this is just me that sees it, but this is a habit that all of these horror reboots, sequels, whatever you want to call them, have. This is a serious issue now that is getting honestly ridiculous at this point. Every single one of them has been stupid in the ending. The ending has always been fucking horrible, and there's no different here. Literally, the rest of the film, in my opinion, it's a great Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. It did a great job of being what it's meant to be. Gory, horrible, and genuinely shocking. They did a great job with it. And the premise of the film is not terrible either. But that ending, though. Why? So, you may be asking, James, what's the premise of this film? Well, I'm going to read it like it is if you Google it, right? Influencers looking to breathe new life into Texas ghost town encounter Leatherface, the legendary killer who wears a mask of human skin. Alright, it's pretty basic, but quite frankly, you don't need anything more than that. You just don't. And, again, it wasn't terrible. I'm so angry. But, yeah, the film itself wasn't awful. The actors in the film are pretty good. Sarah Yarking as Melody, what I would consider one of the duo of main characters. There's two sisters, basically, I believe. Yeah, there's Melody and there's Leela. And I believe those two are the sisters. So Leela is played by Elsie Fisher. Melody is played by Sarah Yarkin. And I think that, personally, they did a fantastic job acting those characters. And I think they were good characters as well. Strong characters to have. There was also another person who stood out to me called Mo Dunford, who played a character called Writer, I believe his name is. But he was like a mechanic in the film. Fantastic. I think he did a really good job. I think all the acting, honestly, in this wasn't too bad. Olwen Fouet, I believe her name is. I probably butchered that name. She actually appeared in Mandy alongside Nicolas Cage. She was really good. She actually played Sally, the original from the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. But of course, the original actress, bless her, passed away back in 2014. So obviously they had to recast her. And she did a fantastic job, in my opinion, as the character. Although there were some very cringy dialogue moments. And we'll be getting into spoiler territory talking about that ending in a moment. And my problem with this character. And then you had Mark Burnham, I believe his name is. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Mark Burnham, who played Leatherface in this film. And again, he was a very good Leatherface. He looked intimidating. He looked scary. They did a great job with his costume design. It was nearly... I'm telling you, this was the closest we have ever seen to a horror reboot sequel that was almost dead on the money that they could have carried on the franchise from this. I mean, they have put sequel bait in the end. Again, we're going to talk about it. Actually, you know what? Let's just get into it. There's not much else I could say about the story without spoiling a lot of stuff. And I know I'm about to spoil the ending, but again, that's why. Spoilers. Don't continue watching. If you want to go and watch this film, it's on Netflix. It's a short film as well. It runs for less than 90 minutes. Like, it's a really short film. And again, it could have been so much more. But yeah, let's talk about the ending. So, through the entirety of the film, these characters are young, they are stupid, and that kind of is just the entire point of it. So, up until about the hour and 3 minute mark, I was invested in this film. I loved it. It did a great job. It did what it needed to do. And there's this moment where I believe it's Leela that basically picks up this weapon and aims it at Leatherface. And it's like kind of like a light bulb moment, right? For her. And it's like this moment that she could have had this big redemption thing, and it could have been really, really impactful and worked really, really well. And she could have said she was about to save her sister. Like, there was this entire section that could have been really empowering, and I was invested. The gun doesn't fire. Yeah, it's just not explained why. I think there's no magazine in it, so she couldn't even recognize that. I don't know. It's ridiculous anyway. So essentially, she then runs away from Leatherface, who chases her, and then we'll come back to Sally, who very recently got skewered by Leatherface. And when I say scared, I mean to the point of where she shouldn't even be moving. She should be... That is it. Her character is dead. And for whatever reason, she's still alive. Did they just take, legal highs at the end when they were writing this film or what? So essentially, she's still alive from this brutal... I mean, honestly, Leatherface picked her off the ground with the fucking chainsaw. She isn't alive. You cannot... It just doesn't make sense. Essentially, she takes a few shots with a shotgun from a very long distance and manages to hit Leatherface, because in films, that's how guns work. And somehow, like, he trickles off. He disappears. Melody, the sister of Leela, is basically trapped in a car. They could have escaped, by the way, very recently, but instead decide to try and ram the killer because everyone in horror movies is stupid. And she basically frees herself from the car. You sort of hear her pulling out what seems to be like something that's pinned her in her leg, so she's sort of pulling that out, I guess. And you kind of hear her scream in pain, and that goes on. After this, there's like I'm going to skip forward a little bit, but just before that, Leela basically goes to help out Melody to get her out of the car and stuff, and Sally is still alive because, a chainsaw to the gut that then goes up through your chest cavity and nearly through your throat. That doesn't kill you. So she basically looks at Leela and says, you can't leave him alive. You have to kill him. Can you see why I don't like this? This is fucking stupid. And this might sound erratic how I'm describing it, right? I literally have just finished the film. It genuinely plays out like this. It's so stupid. And that's when Sally dies. Sally then dies at that moment. She just keels over. That's it. She's gone. And you're like, she should have been dead a while ago. But all right. Leela basically picks up the shotgun that Sally was using because, you know, it worked out so well the last time she tried to use a weapon, and basically follows Leatherface into this old theatre where the final showdown, I guess you could call it, happens. And essentially, you hear the chainsaw, Sally walks through, and she sees the chainsaw on the floor. At this point, we all know that Leatherface has just activated the chainsaw just to distract her so she doesn't know where he comes from. He basically pops out of nowhere, spears the poor girl into like this little pool of water, and you think, well, he's dragged her down. She's screwed, basically. A couple of seconds goes by. She then comes out of the water, and you're like, okay, this is pointlessly being dragged on. And she kind of crawls across the floor, and you hear her sister calling for her. And at that point, of course, Leatherface just pops out of the water like he's Free Willy. It's fucking hilarious. I've never laughed more in my life. It was ridiculous. He just pops out, grabs her by the ankle, and starts pulling her back. Eventually, she fights him off, and she manages to start running towards this shotgun that's on the other side. However, Leatherface, being just the athletic man he is, manages to turn around, pick up the chainsaw, and basically just spin it across the floor, and it hits Leela's ankle or foot. I'm actually not too sure what it hit, because it hit her, but there's no damage to her. Okay, so she falls over, she kind of cries in pain, and she's just about to get to the shotgun, and Leatherface kicks the shotgun, basically, and it all slows down. Now, there is some stuff to Leela's character that she experienced in the past that I'm not going to go into, because I do suggest you watch the film. Just turn it off at a certain point if you want to keep it a good film. But yeah, so essentially this sort of flashback sort of memory thing happens with her, and she turns around to see that her sister Melody is on Leatherface, like with her arm wrapped around his neck, fighting him and stuff. He throws her off into like a pile of rubbish, goes to attack her, and just before he gets his chance, Leela fires 2 shots from the shotgun into Leatherface, upon which then the shotgun runs out of ammo. Okay, and then literally seconds later, I mean literal like milliseconds later, Melody has somehow got from behind her to get the chainsaw and appears in front of her and screams and basically slashes Leatherface's face. Although you can clearly see there's no real damage done to him, and he sort of just lifts up and falls back into the water. I don't know, it's really stupid. At this point, they basically leave this warehouse, they get into the car, they're just about to leave, and oh, what do you know it? He's still alive, and pulls Melody out of the car and slices her head off with a chainsaw. The fuck? Leela literally is at the top of the car, screaming and holding her arms out, but the car's still driving itself. I'll be honest, I literally can't tell if it's a dream sequence or if this was actually a moment that happened. It looks like a dream sequence because like it's super bright, the sun's out, it looks like a classical dream sequence, but I literally can't tell. Fucking stupid. And then after all of that, you have an after credits scene of Leatherface basically walking towards the cabin that his family so on lived in the first film, and that's where the cannibals live. Yeah, you get it, sequel bait, end of film. I have not been more angry and frustrated at an ending to a film in so long. Like, genuinely so long. It was fucking ridiculous. They had a perfect moment for Leela to redeem and sort of fight these demons that she's been fighting through the entire film, to then beat Leatherface, save her sister. You could have some sort of ending with her sister, like they've gone back to society, Leatherface maybe disappeared, maybe he's gone, maybe she didn't shoot him in the right place or whatever, I don't know, and then you could have had that sequel bait. But no, you have to do a stupid ending that makes no fucking sense to the characters, that makes no fucking sense to what's gone on, you know, what people would do in real life. All for what? Oh, let's drag it out 10 more minutes because it doesn't, you know, I'm not satisfied with that. Like, it's so fucking stupid. You basically spat in the face of all the characters when they had some sort of growth, like they do in every fucking horror reboot. I don't know. It just frustrated me a lot, and I was sorely disappointed by that ending. Honestly, the film, up until a certain point, it ain't a bad film. This is probably one of the best reboot sequels that you'll ever see up until a point. Then, for whatever reason, I don't know what the writers were thinking. They just went, fuck it, let's make it really stupid like we did with like every other horror reboot has happened, and let's see if we can make something of it. It was such a bad decision, and I cannot understand for the life of me who greenlit that idea. I can't. It's baffling. And I am so undeniably annoyed, because you had literally what was close to a perfect chance to reboot this franchise and actually make it brilliant. And then you had a stupid fucking ending. You can have a showdown with the main villain in a horror film, right? You can have that. But just don't make it so fucking stupid. Man, I'm disappointed. I really am. And this is just me talking about the ending, bear in mind. Like, the film, up until a point, I am going to keep reiterating this, because I think this is the difference between this film and every other horror franchise that's tried to reboot or resequel or whatever. This had potential. It was so close, in my opinion. So close, in fact, that I honestly think they might as well try and do a sequel to this one. But it's just annoying, because why do you have these stupid fucking endings? It just doesn't make logical sense. Like, I know films aren't meant to be always logical, right? Just watch a Marvel film. There's the clear, obvious stuff. But when it comes to something like horror, there has to be a sense of reality, a grounded reality in it. I don't know. I'm just disappointed by this film. I'm sure myself and Sean will be talking about it in the podcast as well, but I had to get my thoughts out on this film.